It's safe to say, I know we talk about all the time, when Caitlin Clark doesn't play in the playoffs or just in the regular season, we see a dip in viewership. Now we're at the stage of the playoffs where you see here, Caitlin Clark's not playing, obviously. The Fever stream was the second most watched first round game ever on ABC with 951,000 average viewers. Now, here's the problem. Last year, it peaked at 2.2 million. Fever Sun from the playoffs of last year's game, same time slot. So you can say, oh, the NFL is taking away viewership. It's not true because the views were higher. Part of the reason why it was higher last year because the Fever were playing at a faster pace, even though it was frustrating to see Christy Sides with her rotational decisions, and she wasn't consistent with playing to Caitlin Clark's style. However, the other factor is you had a rivalry between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark coming out of college. We saw them play in the championship game where Angel Reese won that matchup. So you had narratives going into the WNBA season. Caitlin Clark came from Iowa. She was building up her fan base over the past 2 seasons, I would argue. And then she comes into the WNBA, plays in Indiana, which is known for basketball. So you have all these narratives supporting viewership. What happens this regular season? You get excited. You're expected that the Fever is going to make a playoff run. Also, I forgot to mention this. The rivalry between the Sun and the Fever. DJ Knight Carrington, the dirty plays she had with Caitlin Clark. It caused a lot of fans to get upset towards her, and rightfully so. But it created buzz in the WNBA. So we transition to this next season, and people are hoping that the Fever, with the upgrades to the roster, a new head coach in Stephanie White, that this team will be much better. Here's the problem. Stephanie White wants to implement her system of playing Connecticut Sun basketball. The issue with that is Caitlin Clark is known to take risk with her speed, with her pushing the pace and being electric out there on the basketball court. When you limit her abilities and you want her in the corner, or you want to slow the game down and play in the mud and get this team playing a more physical style basketball where they're focused on defense and not focused on pushing the tempo, playing with a lot of pace. And you could say it's like 80s Lakers. I'm not going to put that in the same category, but you get what I'm saying. It's fun. It's exciting to watch. When you take that away, fans fall asleep. It's boring. It's like, I'll go watch something else because this is not what I witnessed last year when I first had watched Caitlin Clark play basketball. And fans are going to have different interests. And if you don't keep their attention, they're going to watch something else. So you have that going on. And then the injuries, of course. First off, we saw the groin situation with Caitlin Clark. She came back against the Liberty, and then they shut her down to the All-Star break. And there were talks about her returning. And then it was like, all right, she's done for the season. I think at that point, in my opinion, when Caitlin Clark announced that she was out for the season, all the fans were like, all right, we're moving on. Because we were anticipating her return. We saw the Fever win the WNBA Commissioner's Cup without Caitlin Clark, even though she did play a role with helping them get to that position with that brilliant game against the New York Liberty. However, outside of that moment, when Caitlin Clark said, I'm done, fans said, bye-bye, we're moving on. And here's the problem. If these players are demanding more money and it looks like we're heading towards a lockout, this league might be cooked. Like, it might be done for the WNBA because you're marketing your product in a poor way with activism, with, women's rights, and we deserve this, we're entitled to this money. The problem is fans are not buying it because they look at your product over the last 20 plus years. You have not turned a profit yet. You don't earn anything. You don't deserve that right now. So you can cry about more money, but when you look at the basic economics in the WNBA, they rely on investors, they rely on the NBA to take care of them. Until they can prove to stand on their own 2 feet where they can survive without resources from the NBA and investors, then you don't have a lot of wiggle room. And when you look at the viewership down, because again, I understand it's without Caitlin Clark, but notice it's a drop off and it doesn't help the product. So obviously when you're watching Caitlin Clark, you get familiarized with other players. It's the same argument with the Lakers and Celtics where they brought back the NBA. The 80s Celtics Lakers, that's the teams people watching the most, but they started watching other teams and it slowly transitioned, but they spent an entire decade having that rivalry. They saw them a lot in the NBA finals, and then they transitioned to Michael Jordan. If we don't see at least 5 years of Caitlin Clark playing basketball, you cannot expect to have any type of power or type of leverage when you're negotiating more revenue. Until we see this league grow organically and they can prove that, hey, we're making a profit, things are getting better, you can't have that demand at the negotiation table. When it comes to Caitlin Clark, you have to let her slowly grow this league and we're naturally watch other players. Like people got familiarized with Nafisa Collier. I think she's the one of the best players in the WNBA. She's fun to watch. I love the way she plays basketball. The Minnesota Lynx are a really good basketball team. They're 34-10 this year, and they have a very good chance of winning the championship. And then you have the Atlanta Dream. You also have the Golden State Valkyries. They were the number one in attendance this year. The reason why they were so high in attendance is because Golden State fans love their basketball. If you go watch like the Baron Davis days of Golden State, the fans just packed out the arena. It didn't matter how good they were or how bad they were. They showed up and supported their team. And I'm not surprised that they showed up for the Valkyries. And I'm happy to see that because that's good for the league. You want excitement for a team. So that's something they can hang their hat on. However, you can't just rely on the Valkyries because I don't know anybody from the team. I don't necessarily care. Not to say I won't in the future, but Caitlin Clark is box office. She's the most watched player in the WNBA. You could try to push your Paige Beckers. You could try to push your Aja Wilsons. People are not watching them. The merchandise speaks for itself. The viewership speaks for itself. When Caitlin Clark is not playing basketball, people are watching less WNBA content. It's just the facts. So if this league wants to transition from the old media, from talking heads who have these different viewpoints, and they want to get to a place where they can properly market things and not talk about activism, women's rights, all these other nonsense that has nothing to do with basketball, they need to pivot. And if they end up in that situation, I guarantee you will see growth. You will see things change for the better. But if you have players getting mad about the referees, and I understand the refs have been terrible, but what I mean by that is they're complaining all the time. They get mad at the fans when it comes to how they treat them. And the reality is you got to be thick-skinned when it comes to the fan base. Do I defend everything they do? No, fans can be crazy, but they're going to trash talk. They're going to get in your face. You got to be able to handle that type of criticism, that type of feedback. And if you blow up on them and you act out of control, fans are like, why are you so emotional? And why am I experiencing this? I'm just talking trash. It's part of the game. You see in the NBA, the fans say a lot of bad things. A lot of things are like, yo, what are you doing here? But players, sometimes they get upset. They just, get in their face or they just shrug it off and shut them up during the game. Again, you just have to expect that when you're a player in the WNBA. So I don't know if they're used to all this attention. It seems that way. So they got to get better in these departments. They got to get better at marketing their product and embracing Caitlin Clark. And if you don't, what's going to happen is this league is going to be cooked. It's going to be done for, and they have nobody to blame but themselves. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this report, about the viewership going down without Caitlin Clark. Are you surprised by that? Because I'm not. Love to hear your thoughts about this situation. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.